All right, I'm going to move on from taxation. We're going to go back to spending a little bit, because this is something that I think everyone here wants to know is, and I'm going to start with you, Governor Roemer, when you're talking about the first 100 days in office, how are you going to downsize the spending in the federal government through executive orders or through going to Congress, or how would you do it?
Well, I would start with something more important than spending. Spending is just a symptom of the problem. The problem is Washington, D.C. is the capital of corruption. They get these earmarks. I mean, there are plenty of spending cuts, and we'll talk about it. But first, you've got to get the capital straight. I run for President of the United States. The only guy running who's a congressman and a governor. And I run with no super PAC. I see Gary got one form just in the last couple of weeks. I was disappointed, Gary, and I'll let you talk about it.
A ton of money has flowed into it, too.
I know. If it were funny, I would laugh. But it's not. When your own government is owned by special interests, Gary, you're going to find it's not funny. It puts us in wars we don't belong in. It makes expenditures that we shouldn't make. I would start with corruption. I would have a 5-point campaign reform that I will ask Congress if they want to have a relationship with me for 4 years, that they do. That is, eliminate the super PACs, put PAC contributions the same as individuals. There's a good place for PACs, but not twice the size of individuals. 48-hour reporting period, full disclosure. No registered lobbyist can bring a check or have a fundraiser, and criminal penalties for violations. And then we'll turn to the budget. Once we get the system clean. Now, when you look at me, you think of a big broom. That's what I do. When I ran for governor of Louisiana, I ran against a man that spent $20 million against me. I spent $1 million, and I whipped him. He had never lost an election. He'd been governor 3 times. He used to brag about taking $100,000 in cash and putting it in his pocket. Louisiana's a great state, but it was corrupt 30 years ago. It was corrupt, and you know it. You read about the stories. Now you read about Illinois and other states. You don't read about Louisiana, because by God, we cleaned it up. And that's where you start there. The second day, I started balancing the budget in Louisiana. We had 7 out of the last 8 years before I was elected, an unbalanced budget. We had a $4.7 billion budget, small state. We had a $1 billion deficit, and I balanced it with no new taxes. And here's how I'll do it in Washington. We'll go down every agency, and we'll ask every American to be part of building a better nation. Now, hear me again. We're not going to just pick on the obvious ways. We'll cut that out. No more ethanol subsidies. No more. Look, this is what I do. I used to submit my own budget to Congress. I got more votes than Reagan or Tip O'Neill. I'm good at this. I'm not good at a lot of things. I want to keep it straight now. But I'm good at this. I'm a banker in my heart that didn't foreclose on a single homeowner in this crisis in my $1 billion bank. I know how to work with people and cut this budget. Subsidies of all kinds. Housing, agriculture, ethanol. We give subsidies to Exxon and Big Oil. Is that a disgrace? I mean, the price of oil at 98 bucks a barrel, and we're giving the biggest corporations in America subsidies. I would take every program. The Department of Energy's gone. I would take the Department of Education and cut it down to a small staff that collected data on what worked in America. But no more checks to local politicians or local governments. There are so many ways, but you start by restructuring. You start by cleaning out all the subsidies. You start by deciding what America can do without. You'll start with the entitlements. Now, I'm a 68-year-old man. I'm not a kid. I'm eligible for Social Security, and I'm eligible for Medicare. So I guess those entitlements affect me, don't they? But I look at them slightly different than the other politicians. You paid your taxes, didn't you, for Medicare and Social Security? These are earned benefits. We would tweak them as we have to tweak them. I would do 4 things. 1, I would raise the retirement age 1 month a year for 24 years for Social Security and Medicare. That doesn't affect anybody on the system now, but slowly over time, we would recognize the life expectancy of the American people. Number 2, I would require insurance companies to compete across the state line. They would be under the Sherman Antitrust Act, and Teddy Roosevelt, wherever you are tonight, you're welcome, man. You know why insurance companies aren't under? They're the largest givers to the politicians. Follow the money. Do you know what Obama protected in Obamacare? Insurance companies. They didn't have to compete across the state line. Why is that? You know what he also protected that I would change? Is pharmaceutical companies. You know they are not allowed by law to give price discounts. They're not allowed by law to take fair trade from Canada. We could lower our pharmaceutical costs by 40% if we had a level playing field. Number 3, I would do tort reform. We did it in Louisiana. It lowered the cost 10%. It didn't take away anything from the people, but they couldn't do frivolous lawsuits. And finally, number 5 on my short list, I would give an incentive to all medical suppliers who could document a cost saving of at least 10% while maintaining the highest level of service. I would let them keep 25% of everything they say, and we would turn the medical system around.
All right, thank you, Governor Roemer. We actually do have to take a brief break, but Gary Johnson, Governor Johnson, we're going to come back to you first. When we come back, I'm keeping a time here, making sure everybody has the same amount of time. So a brief 5-minute timeout, and we're going to give you the opportunity to vote here, and we're going to have Rob explain that access right now. And I want to go right back to Governor Gary Johnson here. First 100 days, what would you do to downsize government, bring it back into constitutional check, and what would you do day 1, first day in office? And then I'm going to have you ask a question to Governor Roemer.
I am promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. So in the first 100 days, I'm going to submit a balanced budget to Congress. Y'all recognize what that means? That's a document that is a 43% reduction in what government is spending. And I'm promising to veto legislation where expenses exceed revenue. As governor of New Mexico, when I took over as governor of New Mexico, I won the election, and a month before I was to take office, I immersed myself in the budget, absolutely, with all the state experts, about 6 people every night, 5 till 10 o'clock at night, every night of the week. I immersed myself in that budget, and I got to understand exactly what the problems that were facing the state were, what we needed to spend money on. And I had a meeting with the President of the Senate and also the Speaker of the House, and I realized in that meeting, both of them had held office for over 20 years, I realized in that meeting that I knew more about the budget than they did. And that was as a result of just a few weeks worth of immersing myself in it. My first session of the legislature in New Mexico, I vetoed 200 bills out of 400 bills that were submitted to me. And I will tell you, that had to do with spending. That had to do with spending and the fact that these guys and gals, think they've got the solution to everything when it comes to our problems. And that is really just spending money. I stood up to that, and I said, you know what? These are problems, but spending this money isn't going to make any difference whatsoever in any of our lives. It's just going to cost us money, that's all. New Mexico is a state that's 2-to-1 Democrat. And I got re-elected in a state that was 2-to-1 Democrat, making a name for myself being a penny pincher. I suggest to you that submitting a balanced budget for the year 2013 and promising to veto expenses that exceed revenue, you're you're going to have less spending in that scenario than any other scenario that you could present, that could be presented to you. And they may override that veto, they will override the veto. But what does it say to Congress if I'm elected President of the United States promising to do these things, and there's nothing in my resume to suggest that I am not going to doggedly pursue this agenda that I'm talking about? My entire life has been about doing the things that I said I was going to do.
Okay, now you can ask Governor Roemer a question. He said be nice, but you don't have to be nice.
So, I don't believe in campaign contribution limits. My biggest contributor in New Mexico was somebody who gave me $100,000, and he never was on the phone once to ask me anything. He asked nothing of me but good government. So, Buddy, on the Super PAC, if somebody were to give me $1 million and stick it in the Super PAC, wouldn't that be about liberty and freedom, and certainly it wouldn't be about buying Gary Johnson?
Well, let's go to the Constitution. That might be a good place to start. And it's not the size, it's the intent, and you know it. Some people give money for access. Some people give money to be first in line. Some people give money to get a job. Obama's top five ambassadors gave or bundled an average $800,000 each. That's how you get to be ambassador to France. Nice free country, isn't it? I think our system is corrupt. Now here's my problem with super PACs. Super PACs were allowed by the Supreme Court and the FEC as long as they were independent from the candidate. Here's their logic, as they said in law, in Citizens United 5-4. They said, money is speech. I agree with that. And the battle for 50 years has been between liberals and conservatives. Liberals believe in limits. Conservatives like us believe in full disclosure. What does a super PAC not have, Gary? Full disclosure. It's hidden. We don't know how much money you've got in your super PAC. And I'm not picking on Gary. He's not the problem. He's not the problem. I mean, Rick Perry has 7 super PACs. Mitt Romney has 3. He's already been given 3 $1 million checks. But let me stay in a constitutional debate with the Supreme Court just a second. They ruled that direct contributions to presidents and congressmen could be regulated. They did that clearly. They said the danger is corruption, and we will allow broad regulation of direct contributions. That's why the individual limit is $25. That's why the PAC limit is $5,000. That's why there's some disclosure required. Those are direct contributions. And the Supreme Court, conservative and liberal, were concerned that corruption could seep into the system. All right? Then the second ruling on Citizens United was, if it was a third party, if it were an independent PAC, and there was no relationship with the candidate, then contributions were unlimited. You know why? There was no appearance of corruption. They were separate and individual. Now, look at the real world. Mitt Romney's PACs, super PACs, are run by his former chief of staff. That's no relationship. Or run by his former campaign manager. That's no relationship. There's no independence there. I think the law is being broken. I think it's being broken clearly. Now, it's not done. I'm not accusing Gary Johnson. This is a system like this. He didn't invent the system. He's trying to get elected. I understand that. But there's some things worth not getting elected on. And that's selling the presidency of the United States. And I challenge the Newt Gingriches of the world. I challenge the Mitt Romneys of the world. I challenge the Rick Perrys of the world. How do you get your money? What I would like to see is super PACs eliminated because they're a lie. They are a lie. I would like to see PACs and individuals have the same limit. 2,500 is good with me. I would like to see 48-hour reporting period, full disclosure, and criminal penalties for politicians who violate the law. That's called freedom.
All right, and now I'm going to allow you, Governor Roemer. You can ask a question of Governor Gary Johnson.
Is it true?
I thought you wanted to be nice.
I do. I like Gary. And you know, if I don't make it, I'm going to vote for Gary. It's just real simple. I think you need to be a governor. And you hear his answers. They're excellent. You need to have the experience of running a pretty big organization under the scrutiny of the press in a free country. Gary, if you could change anything in the Constitution or add a constitutional amendment, what would it be? That's a softball you can have.
Well, I guess it would be repealing the, is it the 17th Amendment that allows for senators to be elected as opposed to appointed by the states? I think that was a mistake, and I think that has us in the bind that we're currently in. I would just like to echo what Buddy said. And by the way, thanks, man. I think when it comes to campaign finance reform that there is only one thing that's needed when it comes to campaign finance reform, and that is 100% transparency. I say this tongue-in-cheek. I think politicians should wear jackets similar to NASCAR drivers with logos commensurate on their jackets with the size of the contribution that they take.
GrokTV.